Like, yay,
Beautiful.
freeing prisoners. So many people to talk with. Chiaro doesn't tell me anything. Or that one. I believe that help is on the way. The queen will not leave us here. Okay, that's not too much. Visali Rathimus. A stout old man with a fuzzy grey beard mumbles a prayer. He looks as tired as everyone else in the tavern, but determination is stamped upon his haggard face. What can I do for you? If I may ask, who's that boy with you? He seems to be a bit out of it. There's one. Chiaro the shepherd, my apprentice. He's a smart boy and his faith is strong. He serves Restov though. But there's still something he can learn from an old servant of Abadar. He'll be a great cleric when he gets a little older. And who exactly are you? Visali Rathimus, rector of the loyal temple of Abadar. The temple's gone though, and if we snooze here for much longer, the city will be lost as well. So, what kind of help can I exactly expect from you? First, I sell scrolls. I've lots of them, something for every emergency. Second, while you're here in the tavern, I can read one for you. Guaranteed no surprises. But you'd better not go into the city without a cleric. I won't be going there myself. I'm too old and my powers are needed here. Alright, show me what you got. Oh, so basically lots and lots of spell scrolls. Ooh, raise that. But that's mighty expensive. Yeah, I think for the time being, let's just play with what we have. And quick save. With the power of quick save. Hey Lann. Lann greets you with a nod. Here for chat? I've been waiting for you to come and see what strange beast you've taken into your party. Yeah, you know, actually I'd like to know more about you. Let me guess. Your first question is, can you wear a hat with your one horn? Am I right? I can't. Actually not, but can you wear a hat with your one horn? Sure, I can. But certain designs doesn't suit me too well. Lann speaks in a deadly serious voice. I just noticed you speak common much better than the rest of your tribe. How come? Funnily enough, common isn't all that common in underground. Lann says. But your observation is correct. I used to live on the surface with my parents for a while and had a chance to learn a couple things. The language, the fact that every peasant who sees my scaly mug screams demon and runs away. I don't know if you're interested, but my mom wasn't from an underground tribe. She was a smuggler, the kind that used the dungeons of Kenabres to secretly move and store goods. One time, two gangs couldn't agree on how to share a prime cut, got into a fight, and the winners threw the losers down a hole, dead and alive alike. My dad went to check if the corpse had anything useful on them, and he found a girl from the surface, barely clinging to life. An incredible feeling sparked between them, or maybe the girl just liked men with scales and a cat nose. That might be it. One way or another, he got her back on her feet, and he later even left his home caves. She left her smuggling behind, and they began an honest life together. So much to read. Hey there, nice to see you, Tubson. That's a delightful story of how old Lann came into this world. The next chapter, however, my family and I never stayed in one place for too long. We lived something on the surface, sometimes underground. We couldn't find a place to call home. Living in the caves was hard on my mom, and my dad's appearance raised too many questions in Mendev. They had the war against demons, after all. In the end, my parents decided to stop making each other miserable and separated. My father and I returned to our tribe. I think the peasants screaming, "Demon!" had something to do with that. Or maybe Dad just couldn't stand life without red tail soup. I wouldn't rule out that possibility. Good old red tail soup. The good one with chunks. If I may be so bold, I know that mongrels have very short lifespans, but you don't look like you're getting old or dying. How old are you? I'm as old as I look, no surprise there, but remember Saul? He's 10 years older than me. I remember him back when he was a fearless warrior, and day by day I watched him turn into an old man. Him and my father. It happens very quickly. First, you miss a shot because you don't see the target as clearly as you used to. You think it's because your eyes are tired. You tell yourself it'll get better tomorrow. Then you notice you're having trouble breathing. The climbing is harder than before. Lann clenches and unclenches his human fist. Your fingers stop bending. You have to tie your sword to your hand. You can't even put on your grease without help. When you're washing your face in a stream, sometimes you catch sight of a grey-haired, wrinkled old man you don't recognize. And this goes on until one day, well, you come across a cave beast and you realize you can't outrun it. My dad kept diaries marking all the signs, and I saw it too, the last year. I had to help him get out of bed, help him dress, remind him to eat. Sometimes he forgot my name. I told him that we should have stayed on the surface, and he joked that dodging a goddess was behavior unworthy of a crusader. He meant for Aasimar. Oh. Yeah, can't. I have a nice Sunday. Thank you, you too. Yeah, even though I can't read more about Aasimar here, she's just the goddess of death. I think I also read something about her once before. But so she's ruling over death and like deciding where souls go after dying, so in which plane they go and reside there. Every morning I wake up and check how I feel, but there are no signs yet. Even so, I know I don't have much time. I need to do something useful before I forget why I came here. Aww. So, did you partially come with me so you could see the surface again? No, that wasn't it. I just don't have much patience for certain type of creatures. Demons, I mean. If they want to destroy Kenabres, I'll be on the side of the people they're attacking. Lann looks away. Yeah, doesn't seem to be too honest. Lann, you're my companion, and companions should trust each other. I'm counting on you to give me honest answers, not excuses. Lann looks ashamed. I guess you're right. I shouldn't have been so evasive. It's just that some things are hard to talk about. My family, for example. My birth, hell take me, turned out to be a great misfortune for my parents, all because I'm relatively healthy. I'm the best thing that came from a marriage between a cave-dwelling mongrel and anyone from the surface. A healthy child with the right number of hands and feet, no apparent defects, no missing organs or other problems. They saw hope in me, so risk having more children. They thought it would somehow be alright. A growl edges into Lann's voice. I could have 4 brothers. They first was born 2 years after me, and died 3 years later. He didn't have a nose. Nothing even remotely resembling one. He could only breathe through his mouth. Mom and Dad were afraid to take their eyes off him, for fear he'd choke and suffocate on something. But in the end, it was his weak heart that killed him. Whew. Well, long COVID strikes again. Give me a second to get a bit of breath. Hui. Then there was another pregnancy and birth. I pretended I was sleeping, but snuck out of my bedroom and listened under the door. All those hours, it was very strange, but I've never heard the newborn screaming. Ma moaning, yes, the priest paying. Then I dared to open the door a little and looked inside. The priest stood there, very pale. One of them was holding something, a small object that fit in a palm. He asked, "Do you know what this is?" And the other said, "I think it's a hat." Then stops. I'm sorry, enough. You don't have to keep going if it hurts you. Hell no. I started to tell you and I'm make it to the end. You want to know why I followed you to the surface? Well, here's the reason. Lann pauses, exhales, and continues in a steadier voice. It turned out that this time Mom was expecting triplets. The first of the babies was born in pieces, and the other 2 didn't live long enough to draw their first breath. About 3 weeks later, my father took me to the caves. He didn't want to leave, I could see it in his face, but I think my mom and he decided it together. The curse my people have carried since the First Crusade stood between them, not to mention the 4 dead babies. And old age was rapidly taking its toll on my father. After we returned to the cave, he only lived another 4 years. So, if you're asking me why I decided to go up with you to the surface and join the Crusaders, well, the answer is I've always wanted to. I was afraid to leave my tribe, but it always haunted me that I'd die in a world where 4 crusades would do nothing to stop the beasts from Abyss, and the number of victims just kept growing. I want to change that, or at least try to. And if changing things is too much to ask, then at least get a little revenge. The ones who are behind the Worldwound owe me great debt. The lives of 4 brothers, all my mother's tears, my father's broken heart. It's a lot. It's so much that killing a couple of demons won't do it for me. I'm going to do something real, and I'm ready to pay any price. Call it my personal crusade if you like. Lann gives you a slanted grin. I used to think that things would be better if I'd never been born, but... oh. But now I think I was born for this. To settle the score. What's best to reassure? I'm sorry to hear that, but... well, just cause your parents' love didn't survive hardship, that doesn't mean the same thing will happen to you, you know? What if you find true love, someone who won't leave you no matter what? And break my beloved heart when I die in her arms 5 years later? That's a fine thing to do to the person you love. Then again, there's a chance I inspire some tragic bard to write a tearful ballad. Is that flirting cause we are bard, or is that a generic line? Yeah, I have to say I'm very sorry, truly. Lann smiles, this time sadly. Well then, I'm very lucky. I met someone who not only helped me choose the right path, but is happy to listen to my whining. Oh. So if I may ask, would you like to find your mother? No. The word flies from Lann's mouth faster than an arrow. Then, after a pause, he continues. I don't want to meet her, not because I feel any resentment, it's just that she's a half-elf. She's barely got her first grey hair, and I be a ramshackle old man. She's buried enough children. There's no need to make her witness the death of another one. I hope you understand. Not really. So, why didn't you go up and join the Crusaders before? I couldn't just abandon my tribe. I'm the best hunter. They have it much harder without me, but now that the demons have nearly destroyed Kenabres and the case almost collapsed on our heads, sitting and waiting is just wasn't an option anymore. Anyway, I'm more useful up here than I am down there. Plus, the chief let me go, which means my debt to the tribe has been paid. Wow, quite the sorry, so thanks a lot for sharing, Lann. Thanks for listening. If you may, I would like to talk about Windwalks. There was lots of things that happened. Are you sure? Alright. So, tell me about your connection to Windwalk. My connection to Windwalk? I mean, where do I start? Then turns the unexpressive reptile half of his face to you. It seems like he always does that when he doesn't want you to notice his emotions. We grew up together, trained together. She was the chief's daughter. She was groomed to be the best all her life, and then I came along. We were rivals, but we dragged each other out of the tight spots too. I've always been drawn to grand heroic gestures, sometimes idiotic ones, whereas Wendu liked to roam unexplored passages, finding new caves and making maps. She wanted to be a great huntress, the one who'd make it through the shield maze, but instead she... Lann shakes his head. It'd be better if she had died. The death of a friend is painful, but watching a friend become a shadow of their former self is unbearable. Yeah, I mean, she doesn't really think she's a shadow of her former self, right? Of course. She thinks she did everything right, because the second she starts to doubt herself, she has to face the truth. To admit that she's just a cannibal that demons use as they wish. Lann frowns, looks almost like a wince. She wants to get stronger and stronger, but for what? I'll never understand what drives her. So, were you just friends, or were you more than that? Wow, you really don't pull your punches, do you? There was a time when I asked myself the same question. Wenwerk knew me better than anyone. She understood me better than anyone. She was my first woman, but we never loved each other. Maybe I could have grown to love her, but it always seemed like she never understood what love was. Maybe she just wasn't capable of those kind of feelings. Yeah, reading the first line, I think that's one of the things the patch does. Not the patch, the mod does. Cause like other women around here, me for example. So maybe you can normally just romance him when he's straight. No, of course he's straight, just as a woman, like that. But hey, I think Logan is quite the flirty one, so we need to just change it while reading it. Well, too bad. You and Wenwer didn't work out, but there are plenty of other women around here who might like you. Or men even, like me for example. Huh. Lann laughs and by coincidence turned the unexpressive scaly side of his face toward you. Don't joke like that, I almost believed you. A humble guy like me, a beautiful man, could have wrapped me around his little finger without even trying. Alright, thanks, I've found everything I wanted to know. If you ever want to reopen any more of my old wounds, just, you know where to find me. Well, I think I've found everything I wanted to know. Thank you. Sure thing. I mean, yeah, you have way less voice parts compared to Divinity or Baldur's Gate, but you also have like way more stuff to talk about. I mean, just look at the time. It's played today for over an hour and no fight, just talking and reading things. So, want to tell me more about your people? Of course, what would you like to know? Look how much it is. Alright, here goes nothing. What's it like living in your caves? Oh. Lann gives you a broad smile. His smile is strange, as it pauses where his human features meet his animal ones. Imagine that in the entire world there's only a few hundred like you. There's not an inch of fertile ground anywhere. Now, to grow grain for bread or cotton and linen for cloth. Nowhere. Your neighbors are beasts who want to eat you, or parasites who want to infect you with their larvae, and then eat you. And it's not that bad, because you can try to eat most of the things that are trying to eat you. Sometimes, well, at the risk of getting poisoned, sometimes with almost no risk at all. In the worst years, there's not a single living thing anywhere to be found, predator or prey. That's when you eat mushroom soup. I'd say 3 times a day, but that was barely enough for once every 3 days. Lann shrugs. But life underground has its upsides, pun intended. There's no risk of losing the roof over your head, there's no bad weather, not counting the earthquakes, of course. So, are you really descendants of the first Crusaders? I think I will talk about this and maybe about the rest later, so there's at least some action soon. More like demon spawn, aren't we? Sad, but true. Without the demons, there would be no mongrels. It's the magic of the Worldwound that affected our ancestors and made their children the way we are. Like most in our tribe, Chief Soul fancies himself a descendant of the underground Crusaders, the ones our heroic ancestors left to guard the caves. I don't know if it's true or not. That angel came to our caves for a reason. Maybe he remembered us? Those were evil and dangerous times after the First Crusades. Hundreds of crusaders began having children, and the babies were born with fangs and horns, and warts that covered half their faces. People didn't like the new look. The Inquisitors sure didn't. So our ancestors fled persecution and made a home for themselves, down there under the ground. They had probably intended. I'm sorry, I don't know why I misread so much. They probably intended to find a cure for their children and hoped to return in time, but it never happened. Instead, the Worldwound's terrible legacy was passed down from generation to generation. Mongrel parents can only guess what their child will look like. Each of us is born with a new mutation. Many mutations are fatal. Then stops, then goes on quietly. Well, in the case, we usually don't congratulate the family for the birth of children until they turn at least 3. Most don't even get a name before that. There's no point. Oh, that's very harsh. We even get more options to take. Oh boy. It hasn't been that long since the First Crusade. Why do you know so little about your ancestors? I guess because of their short life cycle? Yeah. Our lives are much shorter than most uplanders. Up here, only a few generations passed, and many still live who remember old Sarkoris as it stood untouched by the demons. Queen Gafrith, for example. But where we live, mongrels start getting old much earlier than humans, much faster, and with more devastating consequences. Few live past 40, and fewer still live long enough to die of old age. Hunger, disease, and monsters from the deep are more effective killers than time. So, for us, the story of the First Crusade is a legend that happened generations ago. There are no living witnesses. We have a tale of the wise and great ancestors who left us to stand guard in the catacombs. But in reality, I suspect they were desperate wretches who couldn't figure out how to dispel the demonic plague and, well, who were abandoned by their own kind. I mean, funny question, but do you have a way to tell day and night? You can't see the sun in your cave, right? Every Mongol settlement has a big gong, which we treat like a relic. The gong keeper hits it twice a day to mark... that's why Venuak was counting gongs. To mark the beginning and the end. But this custom doesn't keep time very precisely. Every mongrel child has snuck up on the gong to strike it at the wrong time at least once, just out of pure mischief. Nothing could keep me away from it, not even the fact that I only have one ear, which means it would have taken double the punishment once I was caught. So sometimes the wrong strikes get mixed in with the right ones, and the tribe can find itself jumping up to greet the morning in the middle of the night. I heard you tell me that there are more tribes than just yours, so do mongrel tribes fight each other? There were skirmishes, and I've been forced to kill my kinfolk before too. Lann speaks in a steady voice. Fights more often break out over food. We have laws in the caves, written and unwritten rules that we follow. We respect one another's right to live, but hunger, it can push a person over the edge. I've never, you can count on that, stolen someone else's kill. But I can understand those of my kin who tried. To hear kids begging for food and not be able to feed them is terrifying. He frowns and goes silent. I also noticed that you are the only member of the Neathholm tribe to call your people mongrels. Why is that? Because all of Golarion calls us that. I don't see the point of all this hemming and hawing over what we are called. Anyone who finds it offensive or takes the issue with it can lead the charge against the name. No one's stopping them. But personally, I'm not going to pick a fight over something as unimportant as a name. Alright, thank you. I found out everything I wanted to know. It's nice to know my rambling seems useful to somebody. Don't be so harsh on yourself. How much is left? Yeah, I think those won't be too long, so let's just do the rest of the dialogue. So, what exactly do you think of the life on the surface? It must be very different from the life underground, yes? Of course. As far as living conditions, the surface is definitely a better place to be. It's easier to get good food and water, not to mention build a house and even grow a few things. In older, well-established settlements, you don't have to deal with anything scarier than rats or maybe foxes stealing chickens. As for the kind of lives you have, I heard a story about demon worshippers abducting a whole family and sacrificing them one by one while the others watched. But there were some brave crusader knights nearby and they killed the villains and saved everyone. And I heard another story. A young blacksmith lost his arm in a fire, couldn't work to feed his wife and baby. They tried their best and lived from hand to mouth, but they were still destitute. In the end, the desperate blacksmith robbed a traveler one night on the road. But there were some brave crusader knights nearby and they caught the robber and threw him in prison. Not long after, his wife smothered their baby and hanged herself. Ugh. Up here, the same person can proudly say he's protecting the innocent from demons and then look the other way while the same innocent starves just because they were born into a poor family. Queen Gaffrey prolongs her life with sun orchid elixir that costs enough to feed an entire city. That's mighty expensive. Back in our caves, everyone is equally poor, and if one person starves, the whole tribe starves. We don't abandon our own in times of trouble. That's the power of a tribe. The laws of the surface are made so that some get everything and others get nothing. I might just be a naive fool from the caves, but I don't understand how it's possible to have so much more and share so much less. Anyway, look who I'm talking to. You must know life on the surface much better than I do. Oh yes, I also have a few questions for our factless aristocracy. But I guess you have to wait until we drive the demons back into the abyss and close the Worldwound. Lann smiles a strange half-smile which breaks along the border between two sides of his face. At the end of the day, the whole world is full of injustice, but it's also full of mad beasts ready to tear us to pieces. So, you said you were prepared to risk your life to do something meaningful. What exactly do you mean by that? To invent a new salad and have it named after me. Lann remarks grimly. Then he sighs. Truth be told, I don't know. It would be much easier if all I really wanted was to kill demons, then a few more demons, then more demons after that. Good, honest rage, and no needless brooding. I think I actually envy the warriors who can live like that. But I can't. If life taught me anything, there are no easy choices. Dying glorious death isn't enough. Some heroes of the Crusade did that and also saved entire settlements, erected the walled stones. Their actions keep the lands of Mender safe for decades. That's what I want. My dumb, short life to have meant something. Mendevian Crusades. In 4433, Aroden defeated a cult dedicated to the demon lord Deskari, making the north of Avestan safe from demonic influence. However, this protection ended with Aroden's death in 4606. The same year, the Worldwound was opened by the witch Aurela Vorlish, working in conjunction with her demonic patron Deskari. Demons poured out and overran the barbarian nation of Sakoris. The Worldwound was not large at first, but soon it abruptly expanded. As it kept growing, it came to be seen as a threat to the entire world. The remaining clerics of Aroden and the clerics of his fellow iomedae took it up upon themselves to defeat the demons and seal the Worldwound. Answering their call, thousands of pilgrim crusaders flooded up the river road and into Mendev, the nearest neighboring kingdom of Farmer Sakoris. Farmer. Thus, the Mendevian Crusade were born. You think I've an exaggerated opinion of myself? Some scaly freak crawls out of the caves and wants to take control of the wallstone and flaunt Iomedae's banner. Any fool can charge at the front lines of the demonic armies and die there. But what good will that do? I want something meaningful, you know? Even if I have to pay the highest price, especially if I have to pay it. There are plenty of worthier people who need to survive this war and tell everyone else what nutcases we were. Aww. Well, thanks for your answers. So long. Wish you could somehow, I don't know, cheer him up.